MLS Aces Podcast, episode 374. This is your host, Tom Sweezy. If you are watching via YouTube, you can tell there is no Jason Vivang with me today. There is no guest interview today, unfortunately. Life has been a little hectic. I think last time we recorded, I went on vacation the next week to Turks and Caicos. Shout out Billy Forbes for all of you USL, MLS, U.S. soccer nerds out there. And then Jason has been kind of finishing up things with life. We've both had some life things going on, and he is finishing up his semester of grad school right now. So Jason, I think as of the time or the day that this episode drops, you should be done or with your last final, if I remember correctly. So if you're listening to this, watching this, please give your love to Jason in the comments or social media or whatnot to hopefully say he finished his last final nice and strong. It has been, I think, 2 weeks since we put out an episode. Again, apologies about that. It has been a little hectic, a little nuts going on, and I know we've missed a lot of live U.S. soccer or MLS soccer stuff. We're going to talk about that, or I'm going to talk about that. It's been a little, I want to say it's probably been close to over 100 episodes, around 100 episodes since I've done a solo episode. So I hope this comes out okay. I hope you guys enjoy listening to me talk and getting my specific soccer thoughts for the next, I don't know, however long I honestly talk. There is no real set time here. It's really just kind of getting through what I got to get through. And if you're watching on YouTube, this is just going to be me talking. So honestly, blast it, go do what you got to do, clean your house, clean your bathroom, go mow the lawn, have me in your ears. You're going to be seeing me on screen. So unless you enjoy looking at my face, I don't think many people out there do. So unless you enjoy, then you can listen to me along the way. But I'm going to get through a lot of stuff. So there's going to be a wide range of topics from World Cup specific to CONCACAF specific to MLS and USL, all the way down, to the nitty gritty of things of US Open Cup, Canadian Championship, and whatnot. It's a fun time for soccer and to be a soccer fan globally. Obviously, the World Cup less than a month away, and we're starting to get the announcements of World Cup rosters coming through. One of the things that I want to make sure when we record and we can put out episodes, we kind of get the MLS representation in the World Cup. Obviously, when the Canada and the US rosters get announced, a large chunk, I'm assuming a large percentage of players are going to be either previously have played in, come up through an MLS academy, played in MLS, something like that. But just to kind of give you as a listener of, hopefully you're a fan of MLS or USL or, just North American soccer in general, an understanding of kind of how, North America, a World Cup hosted in North America, and the representation of North American soccer, not just in the American and the Canadian, but I will start here with New Zealand. So New Zealand have announced their 26-man roster for the World Cup. Center backs Michael Boxall and Finn Sermon will be part of the roster. If you are new to MLS, if you're new to North American soccer, I'm going to give a quick, sentence recap of these players, pretty much two-sentence recaps for you guys. Michael Boxall is a 37-year-old veteran, captain for Minnesota United. He's been a member of Minnesota since the 2017 season. I want to say he's the longest tenured player on Minnesota United's roster. He has 61 caps for the New Zealand national team with 1 goal and 3 assists. And then kind of on the flip side, you have Finn Sermon, 22-year-old young talent for the Portland Timbers. He joined the Timbers in 2014, and he has 17 caps for New Zealand with 2 goals. Bosnia and Herzegovina don't have a current MLS player on it, but we have former New England Revolution winger Esmir Baraktarovic. No disrespect to Esmir. So glad that he got sold to PSV because his last name, saying it as quickly as I like to talk, does not happen fluidly. If you are a longtime listener of the podcast, when he was playing for the Revs, then you know. But Esmir will be part of the 26-man roster for Bosnia and Herzegovina. 21-year-old winger is a former New England Revolution homegrown talent, where he had 9 goal contributions across 57 games for the Revs. Then was sold to PSV, like I mentioned. mentioned, he currently has 14 caps for Bosnia with 1 goal, 2 assists, and played a very large part in getting Bosnia and Herzegovina to the World Cup. And I cannot get the Bosnia and Herzegovina fan song. If you're on social media, soccer social media, and you've heard the Bosnian fans singing, I just look it up because it is a fun listen. Tunisia. They've announced that Vancouver Whitecaps striker Ryan Elumi will be part of the 26-man roster for the World Cup. Elumi is an 18-year-old striker and current homegrown for the Vancouver Whitecaps. He made his first team debut for the Caps in 2025, and he has 2 caps for Tunisia so far. Haiti so far had the largest current representation of MLS in their roster. So defensive midfielder Danley Jean-Jacques, winger Derek Etienne Jr., friend of the pod, by the way, winger Lucius Dietzen will all be part of the 26-man roster. We also have a former MLS player here in defensive midfielder Carl Saint, who joins the group as well. Danley Jean-Jacques, 25-year-old midfielder who plays for the Philadelphia Union. He joined them in the summer of 2024. He has 28 caps for Haiti with 6 goals and 3 assists. Derek Etienne Jr., former New York Red Bulls homegrown, currently plays with Toronto FC, 29 years old. He joined Toronto in the summer of 2024. He has 46 caps for Haiti with 8 goals and 10 assists. Then you have Dietzen, who's a 25-year-old winger for FC Dallas. He's been with Dallas since last summer. He has 30 caps for Haiti with 10 goals and 8 assists. And then Carl Saint, 23-year-old former FC Dallas midfielder. He currently plays in the USL Championship for El Paso Locomotive, and he has 25 caps for Haiti. South Korea will also get in on the MLS fan fun here. So LAFC winger Heung-min Son will be part of the 26-man roster. Obviously, no shocks there. But also former Vancouver Whitecaps, and throwback here, if you guys remember, former Caps midfielder Hwang Mbam will also be part of this group. Heung-min Son, he is the 33-year-old veteran winger for LAFC, captain for South Korea, legend on the field and off the field as well. He joined LAFC last summer, 143 caps with 54 goals and 24 assists, legend. Hwang Mbam, though, 29-year-old midfielder for Feyenoord right now. He played a little over 1 season for the Vancouver Whitecaps back in 2019-2020 era. 71 caps for South Korea with 6 goals and 5 assists. Cape Verde, they have announced that Columbus Crew right back Steven Moreira and San Diego FC goalkeeper CJ Dos Santos will be part of their roster for the World Cup. Also, another former MLSer makes another nation's roster here. Jamiro Montero has also been called up for the World Cup. So Steven Moreira, 31-year-old veteran, right back, center back, whatever you want to consider him at this point in his career. He joined the Crew in the summer of 2021. He's been an absolute legend with them since. He has 18 caps for the Cape Verde national team. CJ Dos Santos made his one-time switch from the U.S. to Cape Verde, 25-year-old goalkeeper for San Diego. A little bit of a, if you weren't in the weeds of things, and if you're not, it's totally fine. People have lives. Again, we haven't put out an episode in a few weeks, but he did make the one-time switch from the U.S. to Cape Verde. He obviously was part of San Diego's inaugural roster last year, former U.S. Youth International, 0 caps, but maybe we see him get a shot at the World Cup. Who knows? And then Jamiro Montero, 32-year-old central midfielder who's played for the Philadelphia Union from 2019 until 2021, and then he played for the San Jose Earthquakes from 2022 until 2023. 52 caps for Cape Verde with 5 goals and 1 assist. Croatia will have 2 current MLSers, Petar Musa for FC Dallas and Orlando City winger Marko Pasalic. Musa is a 28-year-old striker for FC Dallas. He's been a member of Dallas since 2024. He has 10 caps for Croatia with 1 goal, 1 assist. Pasalic, 25-year-old winger for Orlando City, and he joined Orlando City ahead of the 2025 MLS season. 13 caps for Croatia with 1 goal and 3 assists. Austria, they've announced that former Vancouver Whitecaps, a lot of former Vancouver Whitecaps making the World Cup rosters here, but former Vancouver Whitecaps midfielder Alessandro Schaff will be part of their group for the World Cup. Schaff is a 32-year-old central midfielder currently playing for Wolfsberger in Austria's top division. He played for the Whitecaps from 2022 until 2024. He has 6 goals in 35 caps for Austria. And the last World Cup MLS connection here for all of you guys listening and who are nerdy enough to go on this dive with me in this episode. Curacao have announced that 2 former MLS players will be representing them in the World Cup. Eloy Room, 37-year-old veteran goalkeeper who currently plays for Miami FC in the USL Championship. Room played for the Columbus Crew from 2019 until 2023, and he has 67 caps for Curacao. Jurgen Locadia, throwback here, 32-year-old veteran striker who currently also plays for Miami FC in the USL Championship. He played for FC Cincinnati between 2020 and 2021. He has 12 caps with 1 goal and 2 assists for Curacao. So if you are an MLS fan, a US soccer fan, a USL fan, we have representation across the World Cup rosters, not just in the U.S. and Canada and Mexico and all of that. We have representation all across, and as more rosters get announced, I will make sure to, and Jason's with me to talk about it a little bit more, I will make sure to point them out for everyone here. We also have 2 transfers that obviously, won't be part of MLS rosters until post World Cup for the summer transfer window, but DC United did sign a central midfielder from the EFL Championship, Andre Dazel, whose contract expired with Portsmouth FC. He comes over on a free, and then the San Jose Earthquakes have signed winger Darius Johnson from Phoenix Rising in the USL Championship. He is a Granada international. I mean, if you've listened or watched this podcast for a while, I love and Jason loves a good USL to MLS transfer. Darius Johnson has been a very good player for Phoenix Rising. Phoenix has proven that they can sell into MLS teams and into the MLS market in general. So good on them. Shout out to them, and hopefully some impactful players here because DC needs just the talent help, and San Jose right now with their injuries need just players and bodies to eat up minutes. Some Tom Bogert news. It's a little old news at this point, but I want to make sure it's covered at least a little bit on this podcast. James Rodriguez has played his last game for Minnesota United. The plans obviously are, I would still assume as of right now, I don't think there's been a formal, he's no longer officially on the roster news, but you could correct me if I'm wrong about that. But James Rodriguez plans to not return to Minnesota United after the World Cup. Rodriguez played 8 games for Minnesota United. He had 2 assists in 274 minutes across MLS and U.S. Open Cup action. I'm not getting into the whole, was it a success? Was it a failure? Ultimately, maybe I am getting into it by saying this, but ultimately, we knew it was a short stay. We knew it was a 6-month signing. We knew James Rodriguez wasn't going to, be a captain, a future captain, a leader, a guy who was going to bring an MLS Cup to Minnesota United. We knew this was a 6-month run for him to continue getting live minutes, getting live reps, playing. Obviously, we had the weird dehydration. He had to go to the hospital thing. We had the weird, he didn't start a game for a while for Minnesota United. But look, when he was playing, he looked good. He was creating chances, and that's what this Minnesota United team needs. He is going to leave a hole, which is ironic enough for people who think, this was a failure. But we will see what Minnesota United does come the summer window, because I think that it's been a glaring, obvious kind of point for them that Joaquin Pereira has not been the Joaquin Pereira that we saw at the end of last year that was getting, big money transfer rumors and whatnot. And James Rodriguez, when he was creating, the rest of the team was connecting and scoring goals and looking good, right? So I think Minnesota is going to have to address the creativity piece in their attack. And James did bring that, and we will see what they do to address that. Maybe, obviously post World Cup at this point. Colorado Rapids, they have given Darren Yappy a new contract. I'm really upset Jason isn't here for this. We know Jason is Darren Yappy Hive till he dies. But he will be a U22 initiative player on this contract. He's a current 21-year-old that's played striker and winger under Matt Wells this season. He's a current U23 international for the U.S. He had, at this point, I might be a little outdated with my notes here. Hand up, that's on me. like I undercooked the pass here, I'll say. At the point when I put my notes down, he had 3 goals and 2 assists across 12 games, which was roughly 850 minutes. I think he might have another goal, another assist to his name at this point. But again, hand up, that's on me. Let's go to longtime MLS striker Kai Kamara has officially announced his retirement from professional soccer. Kai finishes second all-time on the MLS regular season goal scoring list with 147. The 41-year-old won 2 U.S. Open Cup titles in his career, 2012 with Sporting Kansas City and 2024 with LAFC. He is a former MLS Best 11 player, 2-time MLS All-Star. He had 582 games played between SKC, the Columbus Crew, the Revs, Houston Dynamo, LAFC, CF Montreal, Colorado Rapids, Vancouver Whitecaps, Chicago Fire, Middlesbrough, FC Cincinnati, Helsinki, San Jose Earthquakes, Norwich City, and Minnesota United. 179 career goals, 59 career assists. I mean, Kai Kamara is the epitome of... I think he is up there in the conversations of like non-domestic talents that absolutely took over this league. I think you could have the Kai Kamaras, the Ozzy Alonsos, the Diego Charas, like that level of impact that he brought to every team. I think he's played for the most teams in MLS history in one single career, obviously, right? And dominant goal scorer. Like he was 38, 39 years old and still had like a 10-goal season. It almost felt real that even past the age of 35, Kai Kamara was going to hopefully, at one point catch up to the Chris Wondolowski single or regular season goal scoring record for Major League Soccer. Obviously, he didn't get there, but second all time is not too shabby at all. So shout out Kai. Congratulations on retirement. Congratulations on an amazing career. Absolutely love you on this podcast, and we'll do the hearts for Kai there. Some USL Championship news. Funny enough, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but USL Championship side El Paso Locomotive have signed Ted Lasso star Cristo Fernandez, who played Danny Rojas. I have said it on this podcast before. I have not watched Ted Lasso. I don't know why. People love it. I probably would love it. Me and my wife have gone back and forth of trying to get into it. It's just, it hasn't happened. Not that I think it's a bad show from the few clips and the one-off episodes I've seen. Just, life distracts you from stuff. But obviously, I don't think, a 32-year-old talent who's never played professional soccer before is really going to make a giant impact on the field, and if he does, that's just even a cooler story. But obviously it brings attention, it brings eyes, and I do think for USL finally getting the contract negotiations with the USLPA done, USL probably wants to bring some positive, fun eyes to the league rather than the negative eyes that they've gotten over the last few months. But if you don't know about Cristo Fernandez's story, I did a little research for you all. This offseason, the 32-year-old trained with the Chicago Fire 2 for a few weeks before trialing with El Paso Locomotive for about 2 months. I think he's stayed around the club, trained with the club, and obviously now signing a contract with them. He played at a youth level with Ticos FC in Mexico before having to step away from a playing career at the age of 15 due to an injury. Obviously then went into acting, the Ted Lasso role, and I know he's done plenty of other things. But now, Cristo Fernandez or Danny Rojas is in the USL Championship. So great little fun story there. We've had some firings around the MLS sphere to jump from a fun story to obviously more of a serious story of people losing jobs and whatnot. But the Columbus Crew, they have fired manager Henrik Rydstrom after 16 games in charge of the club. Laurent Courtois took over as interim manager, and we'll dive a little bit more into his immediate success and my sadness around that. Not because I don't like Laurent Courtois, but because I'm a New York City FC fan. But back to Henrik Rydstrom. In 14 MLS games this season, he led the Crew to 13 points with a record of 3 wins, 7 losses, 4 draws. And then he managed an additional 2 games in the U.S. Open Cup where he had wins versus the Richmond Kickers and won Knoxville, both of USL League One. So obviously, right, like you want to win against their division teams. He did that crew looked good in those games. But in terms of the MLS opposition, the MLS teams that you're playing week in and week out and trying to win trophies against, mainly, the team fell short. It was not what I think fans and probably the crew, front office, and pundits and media members wanted to see in the transition from Wilfried Nancy to a new manager. It was very, not that Henrik Rydstrom needed to play Wilfried Nancy style soccer, but that's almost what I feel like we were promised and we were told what was coming with Rydstrom. Rydstrom did not deliver on that. Rydstrom played a very stagnant, kind of boring level of soccer, and yes, he had injuries to Wessam Abu Ali, and yes, he tried to, I think, figure some things out, shifting Max Arfston from kind of a left midfielder to a right midfielder, shifting the players around a little bit, shifting the formations around slightly, the personnel around as well. But ultimately, Rydstrom fell short. They were an absolute abysmal defensive team. I don't think Rudy Camacho at this point is starting caliber MLS player. Andre Gomes was getting run through in the midfield. Just very stagnant, very slow, and I don't think it's what we're used to from the Columbus Crew, which is also part of the reason why I think they made the change. I trust the Columbus Crew organization. I know that they're making changes structurally from a top down, and they want to see the success on the field from a first team level, and I think this is kind of where it came from. They're going to put their trust in the hands of someone who they feel like can be the long-term project. I don't mind the firing. I know Jason loves to sit here on the podcast and say, he wants to give coaches long shots, or not just like short shots to prove themselves. Ultimately, I don't know if he showed anything in the 14, 15, 16 games that he managed for the Crew that would give me any consideration of he is going to be the long-term fix. That is just my opinion there for sure. Then the other firings that happened, and this one was maybe a little bit more of a longer shot here, but Austin FC, they have fired manager Nico Estevez and sporting director Rodolfo Borrell. Assistant manager Davy Arnaud will be taking over as interim manager. Borrell took over as sporting director in the summer of 2023. He helped bring signings in like Facundo Torres, Brandon Vasquez, Murto Azuni, Osman Bakari, and more. Some of those were good signings, some of those obviously not. I'm not gonna dive too much into that. I feel like we've talked about Austin signings enough over the last 12 to 18 months on this podcast. Estevez took over as manager ahead of the 2025 MLS season. Last season he led Austin FC to a 6th place finish in the Western Conference, a round 1 elimination in the MLS Cup playoffs, and Austin did make an Open Cup final where they lost to Nashville SC last year. He leaves Austin this season sitting 13th in the Western Conference on 14 points, 3 wins, 6 losses, 5 draws. And he also had a loss in the U.S. Open Cup to USL Championship side Louisville City. Look, I was not a fan or thrilled with the Nico Estevez hiring when Austin did that prior to last season. I said it on this podcast. His ending at Dallas didn't really prove anything to me of like, this should be one of the coaches floating around kind of like the MLS pool of guys who are going to get another shot, should get another shot, whatever it may be. I think it played out pretty quickly, and I'm kind of fine with that, not because I was proven right with my point, but just because Austin spends a lot of money. Austin invests a lot into their club, and it didn't seem like Nico Estevez really fit that. There's a lot of players playing out of position, a lot of other players outside of the big DP names that I named that haven't lived up to either their salary tag, their roster designation, whatever it may be. I don't think Austin has been a good club really in general in their MLS era. They had one good year with Druisi kind of, just picking people apart. But outside of that, Austin really hasn't been that good. I think it kind of feels like there's an issue from the top down in the club. Maybe getting rid of Rodolfo Borrell, who's been there for, 3 seasons now, 3 full years now-ish. is going to help change that and is going to help kind of bring the sporting direction into a success on the field. I think there's really strong, good pieces that Austin can build around. I'm a fan of Facundo Torres. I think Brandon Vasquez is a really good 9 if he can stay healthy in Major League Soccer. I think the youth teams play well in Austin FC too and MLS Next Pro. They've won an MLS Next Pro title in recent seasons. They've developed some talents. I like John Gallagher. I like Danny Pereira. I like Owen Wolf. I like Joseph Rosales. I like a lot of the players on this team. I think it's just about connecting the top and the bottom of the roster and really kind of stringing together that success on the field, and not overspending in places, right? Murto Azuni, Osman Bukhari, I maybe some people would even say a Brandon Vasquez in that sense. I don't necessarily agree with Vasquez specifically, but I think it's just about connecting where you're spending and connecting that to the bottom of the roster and having a more complete roster from roster spot 1 all the way down to 100. Not literally 100, but you get what I'm saying. I'm going to be interested to see after this final match day leading into the World Cup break for Major League Soccer, what other sporting directors and what other managers lose their jobs. We've seen one sporting director so far, and Borrell lose his job, and 5 managers gone so far this season between Austin, Columbus, Orlando, Montreal, and then Javier Mascherano, and whether he was fired or he decided to leave by himself, whatever actually happened there. But we have seen changes. It could be honestly a really big shift and change for MLS managers, especially with next season kind of being a short sprint season leading into a whole larger calendar change. MLS clubs might see this as the opportunity to be like, let's make changes. Let's make sure we have the sporting director we want before the sprint season, the manager we trust before the sprint season, and all of that. So, I could understand if this is the time that MLS clubs front offices are going to make some big changes. So just be on the lookout for that. Tom Bogert has hinted at it. So if he's hinted at it, then it's true. CONCACAF Champions Cup. Obviously, it's kind of old news at this point. Nashville, they lost their second leg to Tigres 1-0, losing on a 2-0 aggregate in the ConcaChampions semifinals. LAFC, they lost their second leg to Toluca 4-0, losing the aggregate to them 5-2. I put something out on social media that got absolutely teared apart of MLS not allowing clubs to spend enough to compete with Liga MX. I still think that is true. I don't think that the way MLS roster rules are designed, with only 3 DP spots and what is now still a relatively low salary cap, the league and the way that MLS clubs can structure their roster does enough to help MLS clubs compete in this competition. That is true. That is part of the problem, though. And obviously, when I only have a certain number of characters and I'm laying on a beach in Turks and Caicos, I'm not really diving fully deep into everything. So I'll explain it a little bit more here. Of MLS clubs don't spend enough. Seattle Sounders in 2022 were an anomaly. They did some great stuff. I'm not going to take that away from them. And that was obviously the one thing that people throw at you whenever you mention MLS's failures in CONCACAF Champions Cup. In the modern day era, I'm not talking about what DC United did with the old competition, what the LA Galaxy did with the old competition. In the modern day era of ConcaChampions, the Seattle Sounders are the one anomaly in terms of this all. We've seen other MLS clubs have success, make finals, right? RSL, LAFC, Toronto? Am I making that up in my head? I don't know. And then the Columbus Crew, right? And we've seen these games where we really feel like, look, whether Columbus got food poisoned or not, and people are going to throw that around, where MLS clubs could have won a CONCACAF Champions Cup final, but ultimately, look, the record books are only going to show the winner, and yes, the Sounders are the only team to do that. These two teams, LAFC and Nashville, I will say their rosters were the strongest built rosters to go out and try to win CONCACHAMPIONS. But if you look at, rostered players 8 through 15 on Toluca, there's no MLS team that can compete with that at that level when you start talking about the depth and the subs. And, Nashville SC didn't have Sam Surge for their ConcaChampions, like this semifinal run. Patrick Yazbek goes down in pregame with an injury. They're bringing in Brian Acosta, and no disrespect to Brian Acosta. I know he just had a brace over the weekend, shout out. But, when you're going up against Tigres, it's just a whole different ball game than an MLS kind of one-off, performance. MLS teams do not have the full, complete roster, the talent depth on their rosters to compete with Liga MX teams year after year in ConcaChampions. Major League Soccer doesn't really help them out, again, with the money, with the roster designations, how we build rosters, blah, blah, blah. I'm not trying to go on a whole soapbox rant here, but I think Matt Doyle summed it up pretty well. Love Doyle. Don't always agree with him, but I love his, passion and opinion for MLS and U.S. soccer. I ultimately just think, it's just, this is what we're going to see. We're going to see MLS teams go out and do something special every other year. Nashville winning at the Azteca, Seattle Sounders in 2022 winning the competition. We're going to see some special stuff and some really historic moments, but when it comes down to actually winning the competition and not just having the Sounders in 22 be a post-it note on a larger kind of desk of Liga MX trophy title wins, I think that's where MLS needs to help out their own league and their own clubs to be the top league in their region and not focus on, can Inter Miami go play in Copa Libertadores? No. How about we have Inter Miami and Nashville and LAFC and, the Galaxy and FC Cincinnati and the Sounders and all these teams be consistent and, win a Champions Cup. How about that? That is my where I would say the focus is, but again, not trying to rant too long on that. U.S. Open Cup. So the quarterfinals, this is the reason why this is also coming out a little bit later on Thursday. I wanted to make sure the quarterfinals were complete to give some up-to-date soccer games and whatnot. St. Louis City defeated the Houston Dynamo on PKs after a 2-2 regulation game. Obviously, extra time still finished 2-2 PKs, all that stuff, like I said. But the major storyline was St. Louis City backup goalkeeper Ben Lunt subbing in for Roman Berkey in this 26th minute due to an injury. Lunt made 5 saves over the course of, regulation, extra time, all of that. And then in the PK shootout, made 2 saves to secure St. Louis's advancement into the semifinals. The other side, staying on that side of the bracket, Colorado Rapids shut out the San Jose Earthquakes 2-0. Darren Yappy, shout out, new 22, U22 initiative player, scoring in the 39th minute off of a Dante Sealy assist, and Rafa Navajo scoring a PK to get that final storyline. So in terms of the semifinals there, Colorado Rapids will be hosting St. Louis City, 2 brand new managers to this league. Matt Wells and Yolanda May will be leading the charge there to see which one of them will get to a final in their first season in charge of their new club. This is how, if I'm the Rapids, if I'm St. Louis, I want to start off my new manager's tenure. I want to win a trophy, right? I want to make sure that, whether it's the Open Cup, whatever, you're getting a trophy, you're getting some cash, you're getting a CONCACAF Champions Cup spot for next year. This is exactly how you should be doing it. I think some Houston fans might not love the Lawrence and Nolly red card or second yellow that was given. And I think San Jose, honestly, just are getting all caught up in injuries and depth issues right now and kind of, not squad rotating when they probably should have. And now, here they are struggling a little bit in MLS and now eliminated in the quarterfinals of the Open Cup. But look, if you're the Rapids, if you're St. Louis, you did what you had to do to keep moving on and to find success in 2026. So shout out to them. I would love to see one of these 2 clubs win the competition ultimately, because I just think it's a great story that whether you're Matt Wells, whether you're Yolanda May, whether you're the new front office with St. Louis, right? Like, you're starting with a success point in year one of like a new person in charge. So really love that for them. On the other side of the bracket, Orlando City dominated Atlanta United 4-1. Orlando City went up 3-0 within 25 minutes of action. Then they tagged on one more goal just before the half. Latte Loth scored a late goal for Atlanta, but a 4-1 dominant victory for Orlando City. And then the Columbus Crew, they defeated NYCFC in a 1-0 game. New manager bump, like I kind of hinted at before. Laurent Courtois taking over from Henrik Rydstrom. The Crew get a win and move on to a semifinal. Max Arfston got the eventual game winner in this one with the 59th minute goal. Nice footwork and finish for him trying to make a World Cup roster. Pretty frustrating. Look, I'm going to take it from probably a New York City FC perspective. Not that the Crew don't deserve to get some love here. They won the game. Arfston had the finish, and I think the Crew had some better moments than what we've seen from them in obviously 2026. But look, New York City had opportunities. They did not take advantage of it. No Maxi Morales, so the creativity was really lacking. And yeah, they got beat out in Columbus. And when you don't take advantage of opportunities given to you, then you're going to eventually lose the game. And that is what happened. So the Columbus Crew will be hosting Orlando City. Funny enough, we're on the one side of the bracket, like I said, you have two managers, brand new starts, fresh starts, that start off strong. Now you have two clubs kind of trying to figure things out, post-managerial firings with Pareja in Orlando and Rydstrom with Columbus Crew. My maybe fun piece here is Tom Bogert put out that Antoine Griezmann would be eligible to play in the semifinal and the final for Orlando City. Antoine Griezmann coming to Orlando City and winning a U.S. Open Cup in half a year is a fun story. So we will see. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, Columbus fans, you guys have maybe the least fun story in all of it. But, we will see what unfolds. I think, there's obviously good points for all clubs here. The Canadian Championship. So I'm only really going to focus on the MLS teams in this, but I will kind of run through all the results super quick. But Atletico Ottawa of the Canadian Premier League defeats Toronto FC 3-1 behind a Blue Tabla hat trick. Shout out Blue Tabla, MLS throwback there. CF Montreal, they shut out amateur side Calgary Blizzard 5-0. Montreal had 5 different goal scorers in that game. It was what you want to see, a top division side do against an amateur side. And then the rest of the performances here. So Supra du Quebec of the CPL defeated amateur side Woodbridge Strikers 3-1. Forge FC of the CPL defeated CPL side Halifax Wanderers 4-0. Calvary FC of the CPL defeated Pacific FC of the CPL 3-1. Amateur side, CF St. Laurent defeated CPL side Inter Toronto FC 1-0. So that's a fun upset there that isn't MLS related. And then Vancouver FC of the CPL defeated amateur side Langley United 2-0. So the quarterfinals, this, for those who don't know or don't remember, the Canadian Championships do have 2-legged quarterfinals, semifinals. So the quarterfinals begin in early July. Vancouver Whitecaps, who got the first round bye, they will face Calgary FC of the Canadian Premier League. CF Montreal will face Vancouver FC of the Canadian Premier League. Forge FC of the Canadian Premier League will face amateur side CF St. Laurent. And we have a CPL versus CPL matchup of Atletico Ottawa versus FC Supra du Quebec. So that is it. I'm going to not talk about MLS action other than we have our final MLS match day before the World Cup break this upcoming weekend. Some fun games on Saturday, some fun games on Sunday. I'm sure we won't see all of the stars who are potentially playing in the World Cup, probably wanting to get World Cup ready, avoid injury, all that stuff. But I'm going to do Jason's games of the weekend here. So I'll pick a game from Saturday, pick a game for Sunday, and thank you all for watching and listening to me talk and rant for all this time. But Saturday, there are a few interesting options here for the game that I feel like people should be watching, people should be looking at across the board. I'm going to go Colorado Rapids hosting FC Dallas. I think Rapids are kind of hot right now. They're not top of the West talent, but I think right now you have a run in the Open Cup. You are, trying to kind of figure things out, where Dallas are obviously hot. Sammy Sarver drinking Modelo's and having fun. I think it could just be a really fun matchup, a high intensity matchup, a lot of energy, maybe some beer chugs. Who knows? Maybe a Sam Sarver winner. Who knows? But that would be my game to watch on Saturday. And then Sunday, you only have 3 game options to pick from here. There's only really one option that I would say to actually, if you're going to sit down and watch one game to watch, it's LAFC hosting the Seattle Sounders. LAFC been struggling a ton since being eliminated from ConcaChampions. They've been struggling in Major League Soccer action. Maybe no Heung-min Son, depending on how much he wants to play before the World Cup in this game. But hosting the Sounders have been on a really good run since they've actually been eliminated from ConcaChampions by Tigres. But it's 2 teams that you expect to be at the top of the Western Conference by the end of the year. So that is it. That is all from me. Apologies about the delay of an episode. I hope that a Tom Solo episode here, is enough for you guys to kind of get some MLS juice and U.S. soccer juice and news out and into your ears. Thank you all. I appreciate you all. And hopefully we are back next week with Jason to talk USMNT roster and World Cup rosters and World Cup and some MLS news and everything like that. So thank you guys, and talk to you guys next week.